All right. We took a brief, not really brief, but a couple weeks break away from doing the podcast. We had a pretty underwhelming fight night last weekend, but we're gonna catch up on that. We're gonna catch up on the Jacksonville card,
Yes. I would
but
I would like to mention we picked a good week to miss.
yeah,
Like,
neither of us were super disappointed
no.
in talking about Sean Strickland and Abus Magomedov.
Yeah, it's
You
and
know,
yeah, like in Grant Dawson and Kevin Lee getting embarrassed. Like,
yeah.
and tough that week. I went back and watched it. I don't think I could have come up with a single point. This week I do have some interesting things, and my proud hater moment is certainly upon us. But we start with, like, so a very unfortunate piece of news because Cheeto and Henry Cejudo was supposed to be such a fun fight, but it is now delayed or canceled, or we don't really know the status of it yet. We just know it won't be happening when we thought it was going to be happening.
Yeah, we kind of just got blue balled on this fight because it's only like a month or so that it was announced, right? And
Yeah,
obviously you're wondering if Henry Cejudo will even come back after the Sterling fight. At least the good thing with that is that we know he will be at some point, but now it seems like he's just going to try and go after this oh my god, Marab fight. He's going
oh
to go
yes.
after because now they're both injured. That was the initial thought with Cejudo's next fight, and it appears like that's probably what's going to happen. Also, it didn't make a whole lot of sense to me that Cheeto lost to Sandhagen and was getting rewarded with a fight against Cejudo.
They want to make Cheeto their Masvidal of that weight class.
Yeah,
That's, I
which
mean, that's really what
yeah,
it is. And and for the record, I do think Cheeto is a better fighter than Jorge Masvidal is. But they want to make him the kind of the Nate Diaz special, even if I
yeah,
lose, I still win gangster. Like that's the approach they want with him. And I don't blame him because he can fill that role, but he probably should have stepped down and then came up to Cejudo.
yeah. Just when you schedule Corey and Umar,
Yeah.
like those matchup, like Corey should be fighting Henry and Umar should be fighting Cheeto. Like
Yes.
in like the way my brain is the way it works for me, just with how those fights played out. But
But
either way,
Cheeto never accepts that.
we're not getting it anyway, and we're getting the fight that probably should have happened all along with Henry and Marab. So I guess there's a silver lining to not having that fight a little earlier, or not seeing Henry back in action a little earlier. But it is what
It,
it is. How it goes.
it definitely does suck that we have to wait for it, but that's also just the Hudo special.
Yeah,
Like we spend a lot of time waiting on Henry Cejudo. Now, granted, he is not, the Dilla Danis type or the Conor McGregor type where they just don't ever do it. He does circle back and finally does it. But, it is kind of a formulaic approach now where it's like he
yeah.
gets this fight announced. Well, it's probably going to be about 6 months after what he just told us, but we'll get it.
Yeah. Well,
Yeah.
speaking of Conor McGregor,
Yeah.
I know you have a lot of thoughts on how tough has gone. I truly don't because I'm at this point I'm just so disinterested in watching the show anymore because the whole build up to the season was that it's a Conor McGregor season. Obviously, the guy has some elite, chirps, one-liners, whatever you want to call it, great on the mic, and he just doesn't exist in the show at all.
My
So
favorite my favorite
that's how
part of
I feel.
My favorite part of this episode was that the chirp master got chirped out of the building, but we'll circle to that here in a second. I will say, starting the episode, I was very happy to see Connor actually getting involved with Lee Hammond because Lee goes way back with him. Because Connor had an
Yeah.
emotional investment in Lee Hammond, he was actually there doing something. He should have been doing that the whole time. You're messing with fighters' careers because you're putting them on this island, and you give that, I mean, ridiculous. Like, I give them the best in the world, and it's like, no, you don't. You're supposed to be the best in the world. Be here and train your guys. The Kurt Halabaugh win was incredibly lucky.
Oh my god, dude. That is just insane. But that's also such a it's just poetic with how this season has gone for Connor. Like the guy just still has not won a fight. Also, I've been seeing a lot of discourse on social media about how the vets versus prospects is just a completely unfair structure
Yes.
because and we talked about that at the beginning of the season too, but it's just you have guys who are seasoned in the promotion that's considered the highest level of the sport against guys who haven't been there yet.
Mm-hmm.
And obviously you can get one or two that maybe are special like that, but it feels like just overwhelmingly so. Like the guys who have been there before are just showing that they have.
Yeah, and they definitely should have done that more draft format. But yeah, it being straight up UFC guys that have been cut but have been there, like let's say you switch it and Connor is doing the vets and Mike's got a hold of the younger guys. Mike's only has like 2 wins right now.
Yeah.
And that's with an actual coach and like an actual team training you. Even, unprepped, like Roosevelt Roberts is not changing. Our boy,
Marveliev, yeah.
yeah, I was about to say our boy Tamira is not losing. Katona might have lost, and
Hollabaugh definitely would have lost.
Alaba would have lost. But like it's very like, and maybe you get a better shot with Mando because Mando deserved better coaching.
Yeah.
But yeah, the fact that we had Lee dominating that fight and then Kurt just kind of wiggles his way around and gets a hold of him was incredible because, like you said, very fitting. And then obviously the part I'm talking about, the face push we've been seeing for like 4 episodes now, finally happens. Connor gets clowned by Mike. He's over there. Connor's team is high-fiving Mike as he's like, "I'm sorry you're on this team, man. I would have done you way better." And they're all like high-fiving him down the row. Connor's getting heated up, wants to throw hands, and then Roosevelt Roberts, and then what's the other fellow's name? Cody or something Gibson, maybe?
I want to say Kyle Gibson, but that's a pitcher.
Is it Cody Gibson?
It might be Cody Gibson, yeah.
They sit there and they chirp at Connor, and Connor leaves the building.
Yeah.
It was an incredible masterclass.
Between his legs.
Yes,
Yeah.
I mean, like doing his little walk out of the like acting all tough. It's like if these guys that got cut from a company that you make millions for are chirping you out of the building. That's how embarrassing you're being right now.
Yeah.
Like I said, it was a very proud hater moment. As soon as I saw that, I texted in my group chat with a couple of my buddies from home. A couple of them are big Connor guys. I said, you guys should watch the last 8 minutes of the new Tough season because I need you to see what your legend is doing now. But that it made me genuinely happy for one that they didn't cut it because it would have been so easy to try to preserve Connor. Just do the face push in the cage, Dana running in, and that's where the episode ends. They didn't cut Gibson and Roosevelt talking trash. They didn't cut Mike going over there and high-fiving his guys and then pretty much agreeing in that moment. They left it all in.
Yeah.
So I was just proud of how that all unfolded.
Yeah, very, very. It was nice to see that the UFC one is just so like obviously Connor's their cash cow, but they're still at least able to give us the moments of where he's a little like butthurt about stuff that's going on. He and deserves it really. Like the guy with the way he's conducted himself this whole season, definitely refreshing. But I mean, the guy's 0-6 doing just not present at all. Like he deserves the flack, and I'm definitely here for that. I will say I'm here for that.
Forewarning for the folks listening, I apologize because we got dogs running around. So if you hear the leashes and the growling and stuff, that's what's going on. But okay, let's hop into these fight night recaps because we've got a bunch of them.
Yeah.
These last 2 weeks have been a proud moment for my Rising Stars draft.
Mm-hmm.
And I think it's going to continue with this card because I got another one of my boys on here. But we start with by far my greatest achievement to this point, Ilya Topuria versus Josh Emmett. Good God.
The 50-42. I don't know if I've ever seen that before.
It was a 10-7. I don't think I've seen it's been years, I think, since I've watched the fight. And we were talking about it. We were like, what was that, 3 10-8s or something like that?
Mm-hmm.
No, it was a bunch of 10-9s and a 10-7. He is a different animal.
And that's complete insanity. And yeah, that guy probably deserves the next title shot after this weekend, if we're being completely honest. But yeah, that him and Volkanovski would just be so electric because even with the fight that we have coming up this weekend, which I am super excited about, and obviously like think it's going to be a tough challenge for him. We just have not seen a guy like Yair still lost fights. You
Yes.
know, we know Yair can be beaten. We
Yes.
don't know yet if Ilya Topuria can be beaten, and that's
He
super exciting.
he is to Volk what Pavlovich is to John.
Yeah,
He's the scary unknown. You don't know what this kid is capable of, and you have to deal with it on the fly for a title when you're, in one case, unquestionably the best fighter, in my opinion, in the company today, pound for pound, in Volk, or somebody who's widely considered the greatest of all time, if not top three. Like you're protecting your legacy against this great unknown. But Ilya, I mean, absolute masterclass by him.
yeah. Like he ran into some trouble. I think it was the second round, if I remember correctly,
Mm-hmm.
that Emmett landed some pretty clean shots on him. But outside of that, it was
It might have been the first because I remember Emmett getting a first
first.
round 10-9.
Okay.
I believe
Yeah.
so.
Yeah. Yeah. I know it was
It
early
was
on in the
early.
fight. I don't remember exactly which round, but yeah. He faced I mean a little bit of adversity. That's kind of comical when you have a 50-42 scorecard. But he was tested a little bit, and he passed every test that we could have asked of him. Obviously, Emmett just fought for an interim title, so this is the very top of the division. And he's everything. I know you're very high on him. Obviously, you drafted him first.
He
I
was number one
totally
on my board.
yeah, like I totally agree with you that this guy has all the tools to become a future champion, and he lived up to the expectations that we wanted of him in this
Oh,
fight.
oh yeah, big time. So I don't want to harp on it too much because that's obviously the one that got the most attention because of what it means in the future. And we're a week late now, but we've got Macy Barber and Amanda Hebos. Boba, sorry. We've got Macy Barber and Amanda Hebos. And so when we were doing the predictions for that, I said that I wasn't going to go as far to say Macy Barber KO TKO, but I should have trusted my gut because
Yeah.
she looked really good.
Yeah, and that arguably, like you could have given that fight of the night over Ilya and
Josh.
Emmett. That was arguably like I'm trying to think off the top of my head like the best women's MMA fights I've ever seen. Obviously, uh Zhang Wei Li and Joanna and Jacek
Mm-hmm.
is number one. That one is going to be pretty untouchable for the foreseeable future, I imagine.
Yes.
But that was just savagery in the cage. Like it was, I cannot think besides that one fight of a better women's MMA fight that I've ever seen. I was just like on the edge of my seat the whole time. They were eating shots, they were delivering them, and both of their faces halfway through the second round completely just busted up. It was crazy.
Rosa and Esparza might just be um
You
sorry. Sorry. But no, it was an incredible fight. And
I'd
they
rather watch two turtles go at each other than watch than watch Rose and Esparza again, dude. Sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off.
no, no, no. You'd rather watch me try to crawl up the back of the boat while I was at the lake than watch that fight. But yes, they deserve that fight of the night. Like Ilya deserved performance of the night,
Yes.
but this was the fight of the night.
Yeah, absolutely. Like
I mean,
that was insane, and you got to give major props to both of these women. Obviously, Barbara was the one who was able to secure the finish because, like we said in our last podcast, we've said it every time Hebos has fought. She is not a very good defensive striker, and that just showed. She ended up trying to just cling to Barbara's legs and try and will her down to the ground. It didn't work. And that's what happened. That's what happens when you don't tighten up your defense.
yep, yep, you get starched. And
Yeah.
Macy Barber is going to get some legit, bump up after this.
Yeah. And you think about how she came into the UFC with a lot of hype and then it kind of faded away. But now you can see the growth in her skills and how she's actually developing into like a legitimate player in what I expect to be the top 5 of this division fairly soon. I don't think she'll be ranked that. I don't think she is ranked that, but
Her next fight will be in top 5.
yeah,
And that's where it should be because she just proved that she deserves a look in that region.
yeah.
Mhm.
So
And then,
great fight. Love that.
oh, absolutely. Another one of my rising stars, another monster, Brendan Allen. Um, he, I've said it a couple times now. He's looking good. I thought I saw. I really like his versatility. Essentially, is why I ended up taking him, and that kind of versatility that he brings, and not like, and this is not because we'll talk about him here in a second, but like Grant Dawson is good on his feet, but and great on the ground, but his style's not a money making style on the ground. He's a
No.
bit of a backpacker. Brendan Allen is entertaining wherever the fight goes.
Yeah, the
So,
guy's just aggressive.
exactly. So not only is he quality, on the feet or on the mat, he's also a money maker on the feet or on the
Yeah.
ground. So that this fight did another nice little bit to prove that to me. And he just continues to level up, and I'm ready to see him get into that, just fringe top 5 range with his next opponent.
Yeah, going against such like a power puncher like Bruno Silva is, and taking some of those punches, showing that he has a good chin, and dished it right back out and dropped him later in the round, and ended up finishing the fight like that. That was super impressive, just because we all knew that he was a great grappler. It was really like how could his striking game match up against some of these higher level guys, and he showed every bit of striking ability in that fight. So yeah, I tip my cap to you, dude, for taking him in your prospects draft, because that he was never on my radar, but he made you look good. You know?
Yeah. And I think, I did kind of lean a little bit more into the guys that were going to either immediately prove me right or prove me wrong. Because, 3 of the 5 we're fighting within the next 3 weeks of our draft. And, one might have a title shot in Blanchfield. And so I lean more into that. I'm sure you'll have one of these moments before too long where it's like you're kind of getting this domino effect of guys hitting, right? But Brendan
Yeah,
Allen is emerging quickly as like I think one of the sneakier picks from that whole draft.
yeah, for sure, for sure. So we have one more from that card. We had pretty high stakes strawweight fight with Tabitha Ricci and Jillian Robertson. I don't know how this was that far down on the prelims of a fight night, but
Oh, shouldn't have been. Should have been on the main card.
yeah, seriously, with the depth of these fight night cards these days, I mean, you could have replaced it with the
The
Onama.
Onama fight. Yeah, that was supposed to be a one-sided affair anyways.
Yeah,
That was a promotion, that was a marketing tool essentially to get Onama traction. That wasn't and you can do that on the prelim
yeah,
because you
but
just need it for the highlight reels. Nobody's really tuning in to watch Onama. Whereas you could have gotten a
no,
lot more exposure for this. Now I will say Jillian Robertson pick didn't pan out for me, but I had to try because it
yeah,
did look very stylistically good to me.
yeah, and that's the thing with those. It's the same thing. I guess I don't want to compare that to Paul Craig,
Mm.
but you take these just soul grappling. Ryan Hall maybe a better
Yeah.
example, but
The
you take
Uranagi roll
these,
machine.
yeah. But you take these just complete grappling fighters, and just because it's the hardest skill to learn, I think, for an MMA fighter. So when you have people who are as good at that as they are, there's just every chance in the world that they can just get them to the ground and submit you. But Ricci showed that her jiu-jitsu skills are superior to Robertson's wrestling abilities and jiu-jitsu, and she she defended her ranking. She was supposed to win that fight, and she took care of business. Got the decision. UD. Like I don't really have much to say about that other than Ricci did what I expected her to do, and what I'm sure a lot of people out there expect her to do too.
Exactly. Yeah, my only last part of it, kind of like what you were saying, it's like in March Madness, it's like the 4 versus the 13, and that
Yeah,
13 is sneaky good, and they're, they know what they play, and what they play is kind of the antithesis of what the 4 is, but the 4 gets past it proves that they are the better team like they're supposed to be. That's what Tabitha Ricci was that night.
Yeah. So that's the Jacksonville card. And then last weekend we had that was essentially a Dana White's Contender Series
Yeah,
fight
with
card.
Sean Strickland on there for some
Yeah,
reason.
with Sean Strickland on it. And the guy he was fighting looks like he probably should go to the Contender Series. Um,
No kidding.
but yeah, well, I guess we'll get into that fight. Basically, this Abus Magomedov gassed out after round one. Just not a way to. It's not a recipe for success in mixed martial arts, I would say, in my humble opinion. But
He was very clearly riding out to try to do the Alex Pereira finish to Sean.
yeah,
Like, he wanted to get it done quick. He did not. He was not on the stationary bike very much for this fight. He wanted it to be done, or he was going to get finished, and that was that.
yeah, and Sean is just he has such a tricky fighting style to deal with because he'll just kind of wear you down into those later rounds. And that's what he did until the guy just couldn't. It didn't take very long for him to wear down. So,
No, it was by the time Sean had finished saying something racially insensitive on Twitter, this dude was already gassed. So
yeah,
it was an embarrassing fight. Kudos to Sean for not letting the UFC make him into a gatekeeper, because he's not a gatekeeper. He is better than that. He was just fighting your champion not too long ago. I mean, just prior to him becoming a champion, and now he's down here with a
fighting.
prospect that's not even really a prospect.
Yeah. This one, as soon as it was announced, I remember it just made absolutely no sense to us.
No, it was disrespectful. And Sean went out there and said, "Hey, this is disrespectful. I'm going to put this guy out, relatively early. He's going to gas, and then I'm going to go home. And if you need me again in 3 weeks when you have an actual challenger, let me know."
Yeah.
And
that guy left unscathed.
Yeah, I mean, he could have fought again that night.
Yeah, he probably would have if you gave him enough drinks. But
yeah, exactly. Yeah. You tell him somebody's out there hating on America and he's back out in the cage, he's got his gloves taped. But yeah, I don't even really want to dignify this fight because they didn't dignify Sean with a quality opponent.
Yeah.
And hopefully Magomedov comes back and works on his gas tank, and in 4 or 5 years, what we're saying right now looks silly.
Yeah.
Nothing but the best for that guy.
Yeah.
But as of right now, different levels.
You can't show up that unprepared.
No, especially not for a guy like Sean.
Yeah.
And then, like we mentioned this guy earlier, Grant Dawson. He doesn't do a ton for me, but he's gonna be good.
Yeah, beating Ismagulov that's a good win.
Yeah,
like
he'll be a Bilal. He'll be a Bilal prior to the all the heat with Colby and Leon.
Yeah,
it's kind of what everybody. Bilal.
I'm trying to remember if Demira was ranked. He might have. I know he was at one point.
I think he was 13 or 14. He wasn't.
Okay.
He wasn't very high.
So, yeah,
but hey, I think he was.
That gives Grant Dawson a ranking now. Which, what more can you ask? He took care of business against another guy who is a pretty heavy wrestler, but you showed that yours is better. So
yeah, that style works.
Yeah.
That's the unfortunate circumstance of it. People are going to complain about it and you're going to get some shade for it, but if it works, it works. Everybody's just trying to win a belt, and to some point you're going to be undeniable, even if your style is boring. Sorry, we were trying to work out some time issues. We're back now. So yeah, Grant Dawson, not just super into it, but quality win. Probably will get another quality opponent. We'll just have to keep tracking him. And then the last fight, I don't think we're going to spend too much time on it. Kevin Lee, he came back, and I was very excited, but we should probably call it.
I just don't understand why you take that fight in your fight back. You're also fighting at 170 when you fought at 155 for most of your career. That's another one that just didn't make a whole lot of sense to me as to why he would take that to make his way back into the UFC.
I wonder if
everyone knows his skill.
I wonder if it was a situation where Dana was like, if you're going to be a UFC fighter, we need to see that you're ready to be a UFC fighter. Get in here with somebody on high caliber. And Kevin was like, okay. And then this is who came across the table. And then it was like, oh, when now we're back to square one.
Yeah, but we know that he can beat probably some ranked guys. I'd hope I mean, it seems like the guy he fought, trying to not botch his name, Renat Fakhretdinov.
Yeah,
Fakhretdinov? Yeah, dude.
Fakhretdinov, I believe.
Yeah, he's gonna be Renat from here on out for me. But yeah, it seems like this guy is another one of those, you know, Eastern European freaks
Yeah.
just that just tear through their opposing, or their opposition,
Just for clarification's sakes, freaks of nature, not Europeans or freaks.
No, yes, freaks of nature.
I'm
Yeah,
saving us. I'm
no,
saving us some skin on the back
yeah, yeah, yeah. Good call. Good call. Yeah,
there. Okay.
yeah, yeah.
All right.
But
Yes. So that concludes our recap. So now we have our pay-per-views to talk about. We have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. We have 8 fights
yeah,
to cover there.
yeah. Which, sorry that we couldn't have elaborated a little more on some of these other fights, but obviously
A
it's
lot of them did
International
not need
Fight
it.
Week. We got so much stuff to talk about.
A
We're
lot of those
both
fights did
super
not deserve
excited.
elaboration. A
Yeah,
lot of those fights did
yeah,
not deserve elaboration. All right, cool. So like we mentioned, we have 8 total fights. The first one, or the earliest in the card, will be a rematch from a
yeah.
previously decided draw, Jimmy Crute and Alonzo Menafield. And what's funny about this is that originally you had Crute, right?
Yes.
And I had Alonzo in the first fight. We have now switched.
Yeah, and we had some heated arguments over whether this fight counted. Not really me, but you were really pushing for that draw in the
Yes.
last fight to count as a win towards you and Alonzo. And I think it's so funny that now we're switching, we're changing the tunes a little bit on both sides.
We
So
probably should have been forced to stay with our guys, but I will say my main reasoning here is because I trust Jimmy Crute to learn a little bit more from his mistakes and improve upon them. Whereas I think Alonzo might come into this fight a little bit more confident and
yeah,
keep that same game plan, whereas Crute is going to change his. Um, and another thing I just got hung up on, kind of like you did last time, Anthony Smith and Jamal Hill being Crute's big losses. Those
yeah.
really, really well. Whereas Menafield, I don't know. I feel like there's just more lapses in his game, and that's going to feed in to that preparation.
Yeah, it definitely could. But you also take the fact that Manafield fought that well and left with a draw could definitely be a big motivator for him. And I'm totally basing this pick off of what I saw in the last fight. Now it was clear that Jimmy Crute's wrestling wasn't really working super well with Manafield. Obviously, the fence grab played a factor in taking a point away and ultimately costing him the win. But outside of that, like Jimmy Crute was eating some big punches from Manafield. And at some point, I think Crute's also like 1-3, or he's winless in his last 3 fights or something like that. But
Yeah,
not,
he's 0-2-1.
yeah. So not necessarily trending upwards. That scares me off a little bit too. So I just
But
think
again,
I think
it's Jamal Hill and Anthony Smith are those losses.
yes, yes, but I mean Anthony Smith just went out and lost to Johnny Walker too, though.
Yeah.
But besides the point, Crute we know is a predominant wrestler, and we know he's going to lean on that. And I don't know how much better his wrestling is going to get in between the couple months that were this fight and the first fight. So if it wasn't working then, to me, I just don't see it working in this short of a time span afterwards.
I think it'll be more because now they have tape on why it didn't work. So I can see it being like okay, so you need to actually shoot whenever he's doing this as opposed to what we were planning on and him doing that. And I don't know that it'll be him getting better. I think it'll be him knowing how to find better windows against Menafield, which that can be all the difference. So I don't love this. I probably should have went with Zoe. But I don't know. I felt a bit chaotic with this, especially because there's so many fights here that are layups, in my opinion. Or I say layups. I think there's 4. I have 4 layup fights here.
Mm-hmm.
A 4 of 8.
There's a couple that we just happen to agree on.
Right. And 4 of those, like, you just get super stagnant. and I felt
Mhm.
like I kind of wanted to bring some chaos, so I'm leaning into the Crute pick. The
Hey, I
next fight,
respect that. Crut's
yeah,
the favorite in this fight, which kind of
really,
surprised me. Yeah, slight
is it?
favorite.
I would have just assumed it was a pick 'em,
Yeah, well, I mean it's close to a pick 'em.
basically.
Crew was like minus 125 when I checked the line, so it's like very
Okay.
close,
Yeah,
but
it's not much.
still a slight favorite, like that surprised me a little bit. But it seems like he's the more heralded prospect of the two. I mean, Menafield isn't a prospect, but Crew
35
has
years
a
old.
fight coming into the UFC.
Zoe is
So
35 years old,
yeah, like
which is
he's not a prospect.
astonishing.
Yeah.
He looks like Yoel.
Oh my God.
And
Yeah.
Yoel looks like he's 26. So,
Yeah.
like it's a strange beast, this industry. But yeah, Crute's really, is Crute even a prospect anymore?
Maybe not anymore if he's fighting. Yeah, if he's fighting Jamal Hill, and the Jamal Hill fight was back when Hill was like 11 or something like that. Like he
Right.
was lower in the rankings. Obviously, he's since ascended, but yeah,
The way you said that made it sound like it was back when Jamal Hill was 11 years old, as
no.
opposed to, right. So I was just imagining a child version of Jamal Hill beating Jimmy Crute, and I got distracted. But
Jamal Hill at 11 was still probably like 6'1", 200 though.
yes, yeah, he was prepared to be a D1 football player at 11 years old.
Yeah,
Uh, okay, so moving on to the next one. This will be one that I think we can probably just say his name and nod at each other and move on.
yeah,
Jack Della Maddalena fighting Josiah Harrell was supposed to be Sean Brady, was supposed to be an awesome fight,
yeah.
was supposed to be like me really putting my nuts on the table whenever I picked JDM in my Rising Stars draft. But I mean,
We know exactly what's gonna happen. This was super disappointing to hear about. I'm more disappointed about this fight, Brady being replaced in this fight than I don't even remember
Rashawn
the guy
Gore.
Bo Nickel was supposed to Trayshawn Gore. Yeah. So I was super disappointed because obviously Brady was undefeated going into the Bilal fight, still very much in contention for um like a top 5 spot in welterweight. He's
Yeah.
got great wrestling skills. JDM's definitely more of a striker. So I was very disappointed to hear that I think it was an illness for Sean Brady or something like that. So yeah, now Jack's just getting fed a guy to finish in the first round and
Well,
move
and
on
have
with
you
the
seen the
day.
whole situation with Josiah Harrell?
No,
He was on DW, or he's supposed to be on DWCS in 3 weeks.
really.
So he accepted the fight from DWCS to come fight on the pay-per-view. And now his DWCS opponent probably doesn't have an opponent unless JDM just puts him to bed in half a second and it's
Yeah.
fine.
Yeah.
Which is very possible.
Well, that's what I expect to happen.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, if it's a minimal damage thing, um, that Josiah Harrell might also be fighting on the DWCS in a few weeks.
Yeah, I also didn't know that I saw that Harrell weighed in at 162 the last time he fought. So yeah, it could really be a quick night.
Yes, this could not be awesome.
So
This could be bad. Another not awesome aspect of this card is that it's Rumble Lawler's retirement. Rob
ruthless.
Ruth. Why do I keep saying Rumble?
Rumble Johnson.
Yes, Anthony Johnson. Jesus, yes, I'm not an idiot. I promise. Robbie. He's got a retirement fight. It's against Nico Price. I don't think either one of us are in love with Nico Price, but
Yeah.
Robbie's
It's
gonna lose.
definitely dude, it's more reasonable than some of the other retirement fights we've seen. I still think back to the Frankie Edgar one.
But we
The
said that.
Shogun who well,
I about to say we said that for the Shogun Hua fight
yeah.
with the duelist.
Yeah.
He's not good, and he lost. Like, the UFC way is being a legend and then losing to a guy that's well below who you are in stature because you've stayed in the company too long and you fought too long.
Yeah, and it's not like Nico Price is like this total shitter either. Like
No.
he's been around for a little bit. He's won some good fights, but obviously neither of us consider him to be anything special. It just seems like at this point Robbie Lawler can't get into the wars like he did with Rory McDonald anymore. I think about the Barberena fight where it looked like he was maybe winning until he wasn't. Barberena obviously has that style where one shot can change the whole fight.
Any point in time, and it's the script is flipped.
Yeah. And this one, I don't think that I think Price is a little different from Barberena, where I don't think he has like the one, like it won't take one shot, but he has enough power in his punches where like you land maybe a 3-shot combo and like you're wobbly, and then you can
Yes.
kind of dive in and get the finish. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah. Yeah. Like I don't know. Like it makes me sad for one that Robbie is retiring.
Yeah, of course.
It's a weird thing to see. But
Yeah.
I wish that if they were going, they probably should have given him somebody younger because at least somebody benefits from it.
Yeah, Nico Price isn't going anywhere with this win.
No, it's like if there's like Robbie is retiring, win, lose or draw, it's probably going to be a loss. So either give him an absolute can, so we can see him win, like give him these fill-in fighters, give him Abu Smagomedov, or give him somebody young and valuable and be like, oh, one of the things under this kid's cap in 3 years, whenever he's a top 5 fighter, he retired Robbie Lawler.
Yeah.
Make it mean something to me, because this doesn't
Yeah.
mean something to me.
Would you rather have seen JDM fight Lawler here,
Yes.
or would that be too sad?
No. I would have, because JDM would use it. There's some kind of value to it. And Robbie in that way is still giving back to the sport because he's elevating the next guy.
Mm-hmm.
Whereas Nico Price isn't the next guy.
No. So
yeah.
And listen, I hope we're both wrong. I'd love to see Robbie go out on top. Great champion, so fun to watch. Like
Deserves
always
his name in the hall.
Yeah. Oh, he's gonna be in the hall for sure.
Yeah.
Like, yeah. But that's just how it goes with these great fighters when they get into their 40s. Like,
You just
don't
go,
have it
unless
anymore.
you're Yoel. Literally, unless you're Yoel.
Yeah,
Romero.
literally. Yeah. It's just, I mean, Father Time comes for everyone, man. Sad but true.
Sad but true. All right, another one that we can straight up just say the name. I didn't even write his opponent.
Val Woodburn is his opponent.
Cool. Bo Nickel. Whatever. That's okay. You didn't have to tell me. Like, I'm not going to remember it.
I put it in my notes just cause, but literally, dude, I wrote down that anything over 90 seconds is a letdown.
Yes. And
by Bo Nickel standards.
I'll even round up to 120, 2 minutes. I'll call it a flat 2 minutes. Anything, if he finishes him inside 2 minutes, it was a routine night for Bo Nickel. If he finishes inside 1 minute, it was cool. If he finishes him inside 30 seconds, whoa. But beyond, that's the level of anticipation we have for this fight.
Yeah.
We expect it to be Tyson-esque, where it's over in the first round. This
is kind of a high pressure situation for my rising star pick, though, because Bo Nickel was one of the selections that I made. Mm-hmm. And there's a little, there's actually not a little, there's a lot of unknown about Bo Nickel because he only has 4 pro fights under his belt. Obviously, in his UFC debut, we saw him work that arm triangle for like a minute and a half and finally lock it down, not even in the correct technique.
I about to say he didn't even have it. He was just cranking.
Yeah. So
that's Bo,
Yeah. And Jamie Pickett's a guy who's been in the UFC for a little bit. So if he can't put this guy out early, I start to get like early is relative to Bo Nickel is like you said, within 2 minutes.
Yes.
Yeah.
And so the only notes I wrote on this fight was Bo Nickel by decapitation.
Yeah.
Like
he's gonna squeeze his head off. Yeah.
Yeah. It's whatever. Like I wouldn't even be shocked if he tries to get fancy and tries to KO TKO.
Yeah, maybe it would be nice to see like more than 1 minute of Bo Nickel fight time to see how he handles the later.
Yeah,
rounds,
this isn't the fighter to do that with.
This isn't the fight to do it. Yeah, this just isn't.
No, just get it done with, and let's get you a real opponent for the next one. All right, we're back. To actually,
and truthfully, neither.
Go ahead.
Or sorry, I was before we move on. Truthfully, I think the Trayshawn Gore fight would have gone fairly similar. I think that still finishes within round 1.
But now that I'd give that 3 or 4 minutes.
Yeah,
just because Trayshawn Gore does still have some level of anticipation to him. Like he is still,
Yeah.
but yeah, I don't remember the dude's name, but the guy he's fighting now, it is what it is. So
Just
we
dinner.
return
It's
back to
dinner.
the land of actually competitive fights
Yes.
because Dan Hooker and Jalen Turner, that was supposed to happen a while ago.
Mm-hmm.
They end up circling back to it. We're gonna get it for this card. This is Jalen Turner. I'm not real sure if he's a great prospect.
But he's good enough to be in the 5 through 10 range for sure, which I
Yeah,
still
like I
think
mean,
is a tier
but he's
above.
yeah, but he's 13-6.
Yeah.
Like
But
that's a weird
he
record.
has fought some really good guys though.
Yeah, it's a really weird record for somebody that they're touting like that. Like you don't see very many 13-6 guys being put
Yeah.
on main cards of International Fight Week.
Yeah. But I think a big part of it is just the size. Like his size for a lightweight is just insane.
Yeah,
Like
Dan Hooker is
crazy.
usually the big boy in the cage.
Yeah.
And
And now,
he's got 3 inches of disadvantage now.
yeah. But that could also, I could see how that's going to be a little problematic for Turner because Turner is used to having such a pronounced advantage in height and reach over everyone he fights. Obviously, he still will against Hooker, but it's not going to be as glaring as it was when he fought even Gamrot, you know?
Yeah, it's I think Jalen's gonna win
Yeah.
just
Yeah.
because I think that length is always going to complicate things. I think Dan Hooker is going to be more uncomfortable being outsized by that much than Jalen is by his reach and size advantage diminishing a little.
Yeah.
I don't. I'm leaning TKO just because. I mean, we've seen Dan get finished. Like with the Mike Chandler one, always comes to my head. He just got pinned against the cage and slumped. Um, I don't know. Like this is not a fight I'm comfortable with. Like I don't. There's not really much comfort in either one of these fighters for me. I love Dan Hooker. I would love to see him win. But I don't know if he has the confidence anymore. I don't know if Jalen Turner has the development yet to beat a Dan Hooker type. I'm just leaning towards those fireworks.
Yeah. And I think I've always been a little higher on Jalen Turner than you have, just because of obviously the measurables are crazy. He's got really good power too. And like you said, Dan Hooker's chin is kind of deteriorated the last couple years. And I think that will definitely play a big factor. I would be shocked if it went to a decision, but who knows? I don't expect it to go on the ground. And if it does, I don't really know who's gonna be better. Like Turner got himself out of trouble when he fought Gamrot,
But I
but
don't know that he can put an opponent into
yeah,
trouble.
he wasn't like offensive at all. That was just defensive wrestling, and obviously he won't be having to do a lot of that against Dan Hooker.
No.
But also you have to factor in that Turner just feasts on other fighters from down under.
Yeah. He really
Major
does.
part of this, major part of this equation.
Yes, he is
He
the
just does.
Aussie killer.
Yeah. So
I mean,
that's
he hunts
that's my reasoning for being confident in Jalen Turner. If that gives you guys any sort of inspiration
because you
to.
hear that accent at the press conference and be like, "Oh, I have to win now."
Oh yeah, that's what's up.
Oh, yeah. I don't know. I don't know. So with the Jalen Turner thing, it's kind of reflective. I do a lot of NFL draft stuff. Like I like to scout and in that and do all that in my free time. I'm not a big combine. Like I'm not a combine guy. I'm not a potential person. I like what I see now, and that's kind of I think the differences here is because Jalen Turner is a height, weight, speed guy. And
Yeah,
I think that's just not real. Like Pavlovich is the only real fighter in the UFC that I'm like that. But Pavlovich also has put in crazy results.
yeah,
So
yeah. So
yeah,
I think the big thing for Turner here is just obviously Dan Hooker's got some good kicks in his arsenal. Got to avoid that. Try and cut off the cage where you can because he's also a little rangy and stuff like that. But just based on his size and ability, I think, and the style of this fight too. Gamrot was definitely a bad matchup for him. This is definitely a more favorable stylistic matchup for Jalen Turner. So I just think I think he's the younger and more talented of the two. So
Yeah, he should
yeah.
be primed for a bounce back.
Mm-hmm.
All right,
Mm-hmm.
so we enter the top three, the three real moneymaker fights of this card, I'd say. And calling Dricus du Plessis a moneymaker is a weird feeling, but he kind of is now.
Dude, I saw some super funny like meme or tweet or something that had a picture of Dricus du Plessis and Piotr Jan. And for Jan, it said Piotr Jan's a great fighter who can't stop losing, and Dricus du Plessis is a shitty fighter who can't stop winning. And I just thought that was hilarious.
He's just climbing on accident.
Yeah.
And he's been blessed with some good opponents to do that, like Till, obviously.
Yeah.
I I would I have to
Dude,
be
it's
careful
Rob.
about how I
It's
phrase it.
Rob. I am
It is
so
Rob. It is
like
Rob. I agree. But I have to be careful about how I phrase this because I don't want it to sound like Rob is one of my favorite people in the company. Sweet dude, great fighter. It would be better for the company if Dracus won.
I mean promotionally, I guess. But
Promotionally, fresh fights, you get like an actual challenger for Izzy. I just like he's funny. Like Dracus is objectively funny. So you get some of that. You'll have good clips whenever he and Izzy have a press conference because of the whole African-born fighter thing. It's just I can't help but think that it would be better for the company if Dracus went out there and won. He won't. Rob is multiple levels above him, but it would be an incredible thing for the UFC.
yeah, I don't care. I don't care about the promotion. I don't
That's
care about the promotional value. I like seeing good competition in the octagon. We both know Dricus is gonna get demolished in a hypothetical fight with Izzy. Like he
oh yeah.
just will.
Oh yeah.
Like Rob at least is gonna like Rob went to a decision with Izzy last time. He's a former champion. Like we know how good and well-rounded Rob is to give Izzy problems. Obviously, he hasn't been able to translate that into wins, but it's going to be more competitive. And I understand the repetitiveness of that matchup. It'll be the third time we see it,
And
but
it's already 0-2.
we just
There's
had
like
back-to-back Izzy and Alex Pereira fights. We just had four Moreno and Pantoja, or not Pantoja, that's the fight coming up next. Moreno and Figueiredo fights. We just had trying to think of one.
the difference with all those.
Vulcan Max.
But the difference with well, yeah, Vulcan Max, that one is more in line with this. But you're already going into this series down 0-2. Like,
Yeah.
are we playing?
So
Is it Tetralogy 5? Are we playing for a tetralogy?
Yeah. No. I mean, Izzy wins. He won't get another title shot. Like, well, I guess Colby fought Usman twice, and he wasn't going to get another shot unless Usman got beat, which he did, obviously. So, yeah, I mean, it is. I agree. It is most comparable to Max and Volkanovski. Yeah.
Yeah, because it's literally just there's a very clear 1 and 2, but those are also very clear. You know, Izzy is 1, Rob is 2. But everybody else is just so far below it that you just have to keep running it back. And I get tired of that.
Yeah.
So,
I mean, I understand.
Yeah.
But maybe some of it's just hoping that Rob can make it back to the mountaintop. You know?
And that would be sweet. If Rob beat Izzy and then retired or whatever, like was like, I got my belt back. I beat this guy that I couldn't beat. See you later. I would be all for it. But if it's the third fight and he loses again, and the UFC, the whole weight class is just stagnant and there's not much going on, it's like I just don't like you're not gonna give me a reason to care about this division.
Yeah. But back to the actual fight.
Yes.
So why do we think Rob's gonna win? I think it's pretty simple because Dricus has pretty poor defense and is extremely reckless in his striking. And Rob is just a smart guy, very well, like is good everywhere and also has a good gas tank, which I'm also concerned about with Dricus in this fight. But I just think Rob is going to be his defense is going to be tighter. He's going to be able to pick the shots where Dricus gets a little wild. And if he wants to mix in the wrestling, he can, you
Yeah.
know, like if that's really up to him.
I mean, Drake has turned into Khabib against Darren Till,
Against Darren
but
Till.
yeah, but that's not how that's going to go against Rob. It's
No, absolutely not.
Rob has the advantage anywhere this fight goes.
Yes. Yes.
And
The only thing that Dricus has going for him is that his fight style is pretty unorthodox. You don't see a lot of people like him.
no,
So I'm sure Rob and his team have been studying film for the last several weeks, but I I haven't been in the octagon, but I can imagine that what you see when you're actually in there versus what you see on film can be a little different. So maybe Dricus has a trick up his sleeve or two, but on paper this seems like a pretty easy Rob win,
all right, we've got the next fight. Assassin Baby, Brandon Moreno, King of Lego, lost this previously. Whenever these two fought, Alexandre Pantoja.
Twice. Lost twice.
Twice, yes. Very excited about this one, but if there's anything we've learned about Assassin Baby, it's that he's going to avenge his losses.
Yeah,
he's gonna come back out and he's gonna set the record straight and he's gonna get his win. And
yeah.
I fully expect that to happen in this fight.
Yeah, this one gave me a lot of trouble trying to pick because Pantoja has beaten him twice, but those were earlier in Moreno's career. One of them was on the Ultimate Fighter, I believe, and the other was fairly early on in his UFC career. But we've just seen the growth of Brandon Moreno's game since then, since that loss, even in the 4 Figueiredo fights. The last one, the final one, was the most decisive, I would say.
Yeah.
Against obviously another champion who is considered for his size one of the hardest hitters in flyweight or bantamweight, I would say.
Yeah, I'd say pound for pound hitters across the country.
Yeah, and Pantoja is another guy like that who can absolutely finish you at any given moment. We saw it quickly in the first round in the Alex Perez fight where he got the backpack. This one is interesting though because of how both guys are, again, they're both a couple well-rounded fighters. I guess that's for the most part how you have to be if you're a champion. Pantoja has had a lot of finishing success. I think Moreno is definitely more equipped for a 5-round fight, so that's working in his favor for me. You also, like you said, you factor in the fact that he's lost to this guy twice. After the second fight, he got cut from the UFC, so that's a big motivating factor, I'm sure, for Brandon. And I think he's just the confidence that he has in his skills and ability after finally being able to put away Figueiredo like that, and now kind of coming for the next guy and settling the score, if you will. I love Brandon Moreno, but it was tough because I'm also really high on Pantoja. Totally think he deserved this title shot. It was long overdue, but
this got fight of the night written all over it.
Yes.
I mean, I would be shocked if anything else wins it. I'm with you. I think it's just all evolution from the last time these two fought.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know if there's anybody that's evolved more in this company than Brandon Moreno since the last time these two fought. He has become a different level. I mean, his hands are good now. His ground game has always been that, always been there, but it continues to improve. He put 4 very quality fights on with Davison Figueiredo, somebody who is the cream of the crop in that weight class. I think that he is so incredibly good now. And I think that Pantoja has, like you said, he has every right to have this title shot. He has every right to feel confident that he can beat this guy because he's done it twice before. I just think that there's got to be there's that switch that we've seen in Brandon Moreno's head whenever, like in the whole Figueiredo series, where whenever it switches on and he knows that there's vengeance to be made and there's revenge to serve. He's gonna he's going to get it done and he's going to win. So that's kind of where I'm at with this fight.
Yeah, and I think it'll be Pantoja will definitely be the most dangerous in the first 2 rounds. That's probably his best chance to win because he has that knack for finding the finish. But once you get into the championship rounds, I could envision it being 2-2 going into the 5th. Pantoja wins the first 2, Moreno wins the next 2, and ultimately wins the fight in the 5th round. That's kind of how I see it playing out. I think it will go to a decision, and Moreno will show his 5-round experience because Pantoja hasn't had that either.
No,
So,
no, he really hasn't. And yeah, that's another big part to watch. I'm not certain that we'll get into the championship rounds because I think both these guys are going to be looking for finishes. I don't know where it'll finish. I don't know how it'll finish, but I could definitely see this being like a 3rd round knockout or sub or some kind of something like that. And then for our last fight, this is another one that I think it's going to haunt us, that we're both on Volkanovski's side because Yair Rodriguez deserves respect.
Yeah, deserves his flowers. Yep.
But Volk is the best fighter, pound for pound, walking the earth today.
Yes, I
And
agree.
that's the only argument I have to make.
Yeah, and again, I'm John Jones guy here. He's number 1. He is listed as number 1, but the body of work that Volk has put together the last several years makes him completely undeniable. And I love Yair. The guy is so much fun to watch. And we talked about the Topuria Emmett fight earlier. Topuria went 5 rounds.
Yeah.
Yair got him out in the 2nd. So
Yep.
what does that say about him as a fighter? Like he's the real deal. Like was one of the only guys ever to test Max Holloway in the way that he did. Like he is just this is I love this matchup. I think this one really I think will be fight of the night and might be chalky, but just because of how much of a dog Volk is and his willingness and ability to go 5 rounds against another guy who can do the same thing. Yair has shown that he can go 25 minutes and he can touch you up like nobody's business. And in the Emmett fight, he showed he can submit you. Like this is awesome. A absolutely perfect headliner for International Fight Week. But at the end of the day, it is Alexander Volkanovski. The guy just finds ways to win. The Ortega fight had 2 tight chokes and got out of them. And dude, after he got out of those chokes too, the rage and ferocity that he was throwing on Brian Ortega was terrifying.
Yes.
Terrifying.
The only reason I lean more into Assassin Baby Pantoja being fight of the night is because I think Volk is going to be more willing to keep it his own pace. Let it not play into Yair and not let it just be a full sprint. Whereas Brandon and Alexandre are going to be full sprint.
Yeah.
That's the only difference for me. I think both could very easily become fight of the night. I respect Volk too much to pick against him.
Yeah. And I'm sure Yair will throw some things at him that he hasn't seen before because he's another one of those guys that's a pretty creative striker. Honestly, kind of a wonder boy, like the wonder boy of the featherweight division. So it'll definitely be fun. I'm sure Volk is going to leave battered and bruised after this fight, but at the end of the day, I still think he's going to get his hand raised, and I think this one's going the distance because neither guy gets finished.
No, absolutely not. All right, we had a lot of fights to talk about. This one on Saturday. I haven't looked at. Is there even a card next week?
Yeah, it's not great. It's Holly Holm headlining. So,
I know the card. Never mind. Yeah, so it'll be a lot of just talking about how these fights unfolded. All right, Alex, you got anything else?
No, we're all good. Zoom debut. Get used to it.
Yeah, before too terribly long, that'll be our only option. But all right, peace.
All right, see you, buddy.